Hi everyone, my name's Mike, and this is part 2 of our Custodes 2022 review. Thanks to Games Workshop for providing this copy of the Codex for us so we can review it. Today's episode is going to cover shield hosts, which are the 6 unique, orders of the Custodian Guard that'll let you customize them a little bit more. Each one of them has a different shield host fighting style, a warlord trait, stratagem, and relic. So let's talk about the 6 of them now. If you haven't already, go and check out episode 1, which covers all the data sheets and some of the core army rules like the martial katas. And if you want to check out the relics, warlord traits, and other things, you can check out the future episodes for the series. But for now, let's dive right into shield hosts. There are 6 to choose from: the Empress Chosen, the Shadow Keepers, the Dread Host, the Aquiline Shield, the Emissaries Imperatus, and the Solar Watch. Now, each one of them has their own colour scheme and a separate page dedicated to them. The only one that I'm a bit disappointed in that doesn't is the Shield Host, the Emperor's Chosen, the standard one, which I'm assuming is just the standard colour scheme. But let's start there. So the Shield Host fighting style is the Magna Imperata, which trait 1 lets you select when you're selected to shoot or fight. You can reroll one hit roll or wound roll when resolving that unit's attacks, which is basically the Salamander's Mastercrafted rule. And trait 2 is each time a model in this unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound on a 4+, you ignore it. Trait 2 is actually pretty good. I feel like trait 1, because it's a hit roll or a wound roll, has a good flexibility, but I don't know it's good enough in general. And the martial kata is Rendax, which is the name for the martial kata. The stratagem you get for it is 1 CP, which is called Esteemed Amalgam. Use this stratagem in your command phase, select one Empress Chosen unit from your army, then select one other shield host's fighting style. Until the start of your next command phase, the models in the unit that have the traits of that shield host fighting style instead of the Magna Imperata. So basically lets you customize and pick either the Shadow Keepers or one of the other various fighting styles if you need it in a pinch, which is quite good and quite flexible. The Warlord trait is Auric Exemplar. Each time this Warlord fights, after resolving all of its attacks, it can make a number of additional attacks equal to the number of enemy models destroyed as a result of its attacks during that fight, to a maximum of 4 additional attacks. Pretty solid Warlord trait if you want to get into the thick of it. I don't know it's an auto take, but I do feel like if you've got a combat character you just want to throw in there and get stuck in, I imagine putting that on something like a Blade Champion could be really good, because he's obviously going to get a bunch of kills and then you get a bunch more attacks, which is nice. The relic for them is the Paragon Spear. It replaces a Guardian Spear, so you've got a lot of opportunities to put this on a character. You basically pick up a Strength 5 shooting attack rather than Strength 4, and in combat it's +3 Strength, -5 AP, and 2 damage. So, pretty solid weapon. I don't know it's again an auto take, but it's a nice to have. Moving on to the Shadow Keepers. The Shadow Keepers' fighting style is Wardens of the Dark Cells. Martial kata is the Captaris. Trait 1 is, while an enemy unit is within engagement range of a unit with this trait, subtract 1 from the attacks characteristic of each model in the enemy unit. Really good, that one, particularly in a mid-game scenario. Trait 2, each time a model in this unit makes an attack against the character, you reroll the wound roll. Again, a great mid to late game kata. The stratagem they get is called Grim Responsibility for 1 CP. Use the stratagem in any phase when a Shadow Keepers unit from your army is selected as the target of an attack. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of that attack. That can be really good for those, strength 5, strength 6 attacks that come into your custodian units, so you can obviously make it harder to wound. Wounding on 5s and then you've got a 2-up, 4-up save can keep you alive quite a while. It doesn't work on vehicle units, which is a shame, because I can already see people wanting to play it on a Talamon or even just a standard Contemptor or a Land Raider, but sadly it doesn't work. The Warlord trait is called Lock Warden. Each time an attack made by this Warlord is allocated to a character, that unit cannot make invulnerable saves against attacks. Again, a really great one for dealing with those high difficulty to kill characters. I don't know that the output of a standard captain is going to be enough to tip that over. But, maybe with the, with an axe or one of the relics perhaps, but, it's an okay trait. The relic is the Stasis Oblit. I can't even say the word. It's Shadowkeeper's model only. At the start of the fight phase, select one enemy unit in engagement range. That unit is not eligible to fight this phase until after all eligible units from your army have done so. So it's essentially a fight last relic. I feel like Shadowkeepers is a nice, easy one to pick straight off the bat. The Carter's good, the Relic's good, the Stratagem's good. Like, it just feels like an easy one for most people to take. So, expect to see a few of those while people get their heads around the other ones. Shield Host, the next one is the Dread Host. The fighting style is Instruments of the Emperor's Wrath, which is a Dakatare. Dak-at-R-I. Just to make it a little bit more complicated. Trait 1, each time a model in the unit with this trait makes an attack, an enemy unit within 9, the armor penetration characteristic is improved by 1. Now, that obviously works in combat as well, as far as I can tell, because it just says you have to be within 9 of it. And obviously in combat, you're definitely within 9. And trait 2, you can reroll charge rolls made for units with this trait, which obviously ties back to other rules that say if you already get reroll charges, you then get +1, which is a nice to have. Their stratagem is 2 CP called Golden Light. Use this stratagem in your movement phase when a Dread Host unit from your army is set up on the battlefield from using the Golden Light ability. Until the start of your next turn, each time an attack is made against this unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. And each time this unit declares a charge, enemy units that were targeted by the charge cannot fire Overwatch or set to defend. This is a great one with Tower around the corner. The Dread Host could see a lot of play just for that, putting 6 Terminators into Deep Strike, dropping them in, declaring charges and mowing into them, ignoring Overwatch. Their Warlord trait is called All-Seeing Annihilator, which might be the single best name for a Warlord trait ever. In your command phase, select this Warlord or one friendly Dread Host core unit within 6 of this Warlord. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model with this in the unit you selected makes an attack, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. If you've got a big unit of Custodes alongside your Warlord, that's a lot of extra attacks. The Relic is the Admon Ortus, which is a Castellan Axe, and it replaces the Axe. You get a Strength 5 shooting attack, and your combat profile is +3, -3, and flat 3, which is pretty solid in terms of output. You basically Strength 8 with the characters and whatnot that can use it. Strength 8, -3, flat 3, which is pretty brutal. The next shield host we're going to talk about is the Aquilon Shield. The fighting style is the Gilded Guardians, which is a Salvus martial Carter. Trait 1 is core units are eligible to perform heroic intervention as if they were characters, which totally changes the mid-game if you've got multiple units that are eligible to perform it. And trait 2 is each time an attack with an armor penetration characteristic of -1 is allocated to a model with this trait, the AP is 0 instead. So again, keeping your 2+ armor save is really important, particularly in volume attacks. So really good traits. Shield of Honor is the stratagem for 1 CP. Use a stratagem in your opponent's shooting phase when an enemy unit is selected to shoot. Select 1 Imperium infantry character unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, while that unit from your army is within 6 of a friendly Aquilon Shield core unit, enemy units cannot target that infantry character with ranged weapons. It essentially gives you bodyguard for any infantry squad for a friendly Imperium infantry character. Now, in a pinch, obviously, if you don't have wardens, this gives you a great way of protecting characters that might be hung out to dry. The fact you don't get Carters, which is such an integral part of the way the Custodes now fight, if you ally in other characters, I can see it. I mean, it obviously helps you protect Psychana characters or Inquisition characters and that sort of thing. But I feel like because you lose the Carters, if you, say, put Gilliman in, for example, the stratagem has a very niche spot just in protecting those other characters that don't take away the other parts of the Custodian list. The Warlord trait is Revered Companion. Each time an attack is allocated to this Warlord, halve the damage. Really solid. When you've got 8 or 9 wounds, particularly on things like the Terminator and the Bite character, halving damage is great. The Relic is the Presadius, which is you have to have a Presadium shield, and each time an attack is made against the bearer, subtract 1 from the wound roll. That is really, like, if you're halving damage and then you've given your character a shield, good luck. Halving damage and then -1 to wound on top of that. And then obviously if you stack that with trait 2 from the Gilded Guardians fighting style and you're new to the AP on top of it, and you've got the shield, which is already another +1, very tough character there. The next one we're going to talk about is the Solar Watch. The Solar Watch fighting style is the Talon Sortie, which is a Callistus martial Carter. The trait 1 is add 1 to the advance and charge rolls made for units with this trait. If a unit with this trait has the Implacable Vanguard ability, adds 7 to the move characteristic instead of 6, so that obviously affects the bikes. Trait 2 is units with this trait are eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which they fell back. I don't think it can be quite understated how important that can be in some cases, just to give you the opportunity to strike first, if nothing else. So again, the trait 1, I feel like trait 1 could be a really good turn 1 if you take it as the primary. The downside is trait 2 is pretty limiting in what you can do with it, because obviously it relies on you being in combat to fall back and then declare a charge, which, look, it might happen turn 1. If you go second, it might happen turn 2, but it feels a little bit more niche. Their stratagem is the Eagle Strike for 1 CP. Use this stratagem in any phase. When an enemy warlord is destroyed by a Solar Watch unit from your army, until the end of the battle, each time a combat attrition test is taken for an enemy unit, subtract 1. So basically, enemy units will fall back and be wiped out by combat attrition easier. Again, a bit niche. You have to kill the enemy warlord, and it has to be by a Solar Watch unit, which means you have to make sure your final blow doesn't come from a Psychana unit or an Inquisition character lurking around. And combat attrition tests are one of those weird ones where you only take them after you fail morale, and you only fail morale after you lose devastating casualties. And there are so many ways of ignoring the morale test in the first place that I don't know whether that. I mean, 1 CP is fair for it, but I don't know it's necessarily the reason to take Solar Watch. The Warlord trait is called Sally Forth. At the start of your charge phase, select 1 friendly Solar Watch infantry unit within 6 of the Warlord. Until the end of the phase, that unit is eligible to charge in a turn in which it advanced. Advance and charge is always good. And the fact it just says Solar Watch infantry means you can actually pick yourself. It doesn't require core or anything like that. So you could get some quite interesting things happen, particularly, again, mid and late game. The relic is the Silver Swift Talon, which is a Guardian Spear. The bearer can shoot and charge in a turn in which it fell back, which is great. The shooting profile is up an AP, so it's strength 4, -2, 2 damage. And the melee profile is +2, -4, and damage 2. So it gets a little buff for the shooting profile there at the -2 AP, which is nice. The last shield host is the Emissaries Imperatus. The shield fighting style is Heralds of the Throne, which is a Conservi Carta. And at the start of the fight phase, if a unit with this trait is within engagement range of any enemy units, it can fight first. That's really good. But again, it's probably a tertiary Carta for you to be using for turns 3, 4, or 5. And trait 2 is each time a model in this unit makes an attack, you can ignore any and all modifiers to the hit and wound roll. Again, really good combat one. The stratagem they have is called Into the Darkness, which is either 2 or 3 CP. Use the stratagem at the start of the first battle round before the first turn begins. Select 1 Emissaries Imperatus core unit from your army. That unit can make a normal move as if it were your movement phase, but must end that move more than 9 inches away from enemy models. If both players have units that can do this, the player who is taking the first turn moves the unit first. If the unit contains 4 or more models, it's 3 CP, otherwise it's 2 CP. So this lets you essentially get a unit into position. Now, 3 bikes meet the core unit requirement. They can make a normal move as if it was the movement phase, which is a 14-inch move for the bikes, which is pretty devastating to get them into a position for a turn 1 charge. The Warlord trait is Voice of the Emperor. Now, this adds 3 to the range of the Warlord traits, to the Warlord's aura abilities, to a maximum of 12 inches. And they gain a new ability called Voice of the Emperor, which is an aura. Now, this has already been impacted by Voice of the Emperor, so it's a 9-inch aura rather than a 6. It's already included. You add 1 to the leadership characteristics of the models in that unit within 9. Leadership 12, Custodians feel like massive overkill a lot of the time. It does affect Psychana units, which is a nice thing, I guess, if you're going to mix and match. But 12 on most Custodian units just feels like overkill. Their relic is called Halo of the Torchbearer. The bearer has the following ability, Halo of the Torchbearer. While a friendly Emissaries Imperatus unit is within 3 of this model, it can ignore any and all modifiers to its move, advance, and charge rolls. And at the start of the fight phase, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 3. On a 3+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, or d3 mortal wounds if that unit's leadership characteristic is 7 or less. So it's a nice little mortal wound aura. The best thing is it doesn't sort of require a spear or a shield. You can just give it to someone, which is great. Now, I should have mentioned at the start of all of this, the martial cartas for the shield hosts. Basically, once per battle, when you select one of the Carta stances to be active for your army, you can use this ability. If you do so, that Carta's other stances also become active for your army. The other Carta stance does not count as being selected as the active stance, meaning you are not prevented from selecting it in a subsequent command phase, providing you haven't already done so. And you are able to use this ability even if you selected the other Carta stance to be active in your previous command phase. So, obviously that's another benefit to each of the shield hosts. It does give you more options for the martial Carta. So, that covers the 6 shield hosts. Like I say, I do feel like Shadowkeepers is a nice easy one for a lot of players to take. I also think that the Emissaries Imperatus is a great one if you're going to mix and match with the Sisters of Silence. And Solar Watch also has a lot of play in it as well, which I really like. I don't think there's any one standout there for me. They're the first 3 I sort of looked at and was interested in doing. It's also partly to do with the colour schemes, I think. But that's it for this episode. Like I said earlier at the start of the episode, if you want to check out all the data sheets, go back and watch the first episode in the series. Otherwise, the next episode will cover the Captain upgrades, the relics, warlord traits, and then in the final episode we'll look at some of the stratagems. So until then, thanks for watching, guys.